So here is Sharpie at his CCI 2-star long at the Ocala Jockey Club. And I am working him around the arena first, trying to get him relax, get those deep breaths. The bell has rung, and I am preparing him to go into the ring. So I want to make sure my horse is nice and focused. In between my legs, he actually feels really nice and relaxed, considering that this can be quite a big atmosphere for horses. So we come down the center line, working on getting those good marks for straightness. So I'm really working on getting him to stay in between both my leg and hand, nice and straight, which he's doing a fairly good job. And again, it can be hard for horses in this arena because you have the sponsors and the vendors down there at the bottom at C, but he handles it pretty well. And now I cross the diagonal for our medium trot, and I did this a little bit on the casual side for him as he's still working on developing those, and he can get kind of tense when he tries to go bigger. So I went on the conservative side so I could keep more relaxation through hopefully the rest of my test. But you see here he puts in a very good leg yield to the right. Then we have to go into our half 10-meter circle, which you want to make sure you have your horses on your outside reins so you don't lose the haunches. And now I'm preparing for going into my corner. We have to do a walk transition, 3 to 4 steps, and then back to the trot. Does that fairly well. And now another leg yield to the left. Again, he's feeling very workable, very relaxed. If anything, I can maybe ask for a little bit more engagement of the hind leg. You can see he's stepping just maybe a smidge short. But that comes through him getting stronger and stronger. And now preparing for our halt. It's a little abrupt, almost square. Should have pushed him up a little bit more. And now into our rein back. 3 to 4 steps. He does that fairly obediently. And now we move into our medium walk, which again you want to see overstep from the hind foot, overstepping the front foot. And now we are in our extended walk. I'm getting a fairly good overstep. I needed him to take the bit maybe just a little bit more and really stretch over his back. And then coming back into the medium walk, you want to keep the same energy but change the frame. And then into our transition of trot. And now we have to do a transition to canter right away, and then a 15-meter circle, which that happens all fairly quickly, so you have to make sure you have your horse on your aids and you have your half halt. And now we have a Canter Serpentine, which is supposed to be 5 meters of the center line, and I rode this horribly. So my loops were pretty off. I don't even know what I was thinking, but I made my loops too small, and yeah, could have gotten a way better mark if I rode that better. Now we cross the diagonal again with a medium canter. And then we have to come back and do a counter canter, which this can be quite hard still for horses with balance. And then down to the trot. I had to do a little bit of repositioning him a little bit before I asked for the canter again. And again, those transitions happen fairly quickly, but he is being very rideable for me. And I'm able to push. If anything, I needed a little bit more canter. And again, my loops are horrible. I'm not quite sure. Those are supposed to be 5 meters of the center line, and you want your apex to be over X essentially. So again, my serpentines were not very good. But again, crossing diagonal for the medium canter. He's getting much better cadence in this canter, and he's getting stronger and stronger. Down to the trot. I was very, very pleased with this test with him. He was very rideable. It was actually quite enjoyable to ride this, and gave us a really good, solid mark to put us in the middle of the pack. Now on to cross country. You can see my friend Lady Ashker there supporting me. We're off on cross country. This is kind of a bit of a hilly course, so it's a little hard to get video footage, so you'll be seeing my helmet cam. So we were about the 5th horse out, so you can see the ground's pretty fresh. I'm making sure I get my lines. The thing with Sharpie is just getting him to relax and making sure he sees the fences, so he'll back off a bit. He can be a pretty brave horse. That was fence 1 and 2. Heading to fence 3, which is this log roll coming up, which is a bit downhill. Wanted to make sure my horse was in balance so he could see the fence, jumping in a good stride. And so again here you can see him galloping, and you'll see that the white stuff on his legs is a water-soluble grease. It can help if the horses kind of touch their legs on the fences. It just helps with a little bit of the friction. And since Sharpie can sometimes get a little closer than I would like with his legs, I have grease on him. As you can see, his gallop is looking really nice and uphill. He really feels good. Stride is really feeling nice and open. Now I'm preparing for our first combination on course, which is a 3-stride roll top, which you'll see here in a second. As I'm coming to this, it walks kind of in an easy 3, and he gets down there pretty snug, so that should have given me a fair warning that his stride was opening up and was pretty big. And so my biggest concern on course for Sharpie was this combination to the chevron, and I made a couple of mistakes here. So I take the big jump in, and I'm kind of on the half stride, and I get the glance off. He's still pretty green about that. Now I need to make sure I get my homework done and kind of get him to really search for the flags, even if the distance is a little off. He comes back and kind of pings it just fine, but again, that's a little bit of a hole in my homework right there that I need to work on. And I should have known better by how big his stride was. I should have slowed down so he could have maybe read it a little bit faster and sooner. So now we're coming to the water. Again, he really doesn't care about that small 3-log thing. And you'll see us come around this corner now. And he does a pretty good job here of kind of backing off. Again, the hardest thing has been with Sharpie is he can be so brave and not really mind stuff. But he does a fairly good footwork through this combination. And then you'll see that element of C was turned backwards, and it just caught my eye as I went over it. And because I had a run out, I wanted to make sure my horse had a good round. I had a bit of a brain fart, and I didn't want to get eliminated, so I just stopped and circled back. And then I was like, oh, that's right. Red is always on right, and even though the C had flipped around, it was still flagged properly. So if it had been flagged the other way, meaning that I had jumped it backwards, I could have been eliminated. So that's why I kind of took my time right there. I knew I wasn't going to make time, and I had the 20 penalties, so I just wanted to make sure I could give my horse a good positive run. And so now, after that little debacle, coming down the hill to this frame, he jumps it pretty good. You see he drops his ears, but he's so brave. He still jumped it in a nice shape. Overhangs can be sometimes a little hard for horses. And he actually did a really nice line of turning inside the chevrons that were meant for the 3-star. And now we did our combination here, which again, he kind of gets a little bit on the muscle for. I would like to see him do a little bit better shape around those. He jumps this big table really, really nicely. So again, sometimes for Sharpie, the bigger ones are better, but in this time in training, he really needs to learn a little bit more responsibility. So you'll see his ears always flicker back to me. He's listening to me, which is a good thing, but part of cross-country riding is you do want your horse to be able to make their own decisions sometimes, and you need to teach them the right decisions. So this is kind of the point in the training, and this is a good place. I know I had the run out, but I was really looking for this course to educate him. And again, he's feeling great. He's galloping really well. The footing feels amazing. coming to this table. I have to always make sure I balance him, which again is something that I'm going to work on during the winter. And he's such a keen horse for the job. He really always wants to try. And we come up here. The roping sometimes was a little confusing on this course, I have to say. I wasn't quite a fan of how tightly it was roped next to fences that we had to gallop past. So here we jump this white oxer. He does that really well. And because, again, this guy is pretty brave going next to fences, but Munson's a little spooky, so it could cause some issues later. Coming to the last water here. Again, he has absolutely no hesitation. He just canters right in. And then it's just there. He didn't really lock on to that chevron. So, again, this is all a bit of the homework that I get to do over the winter with him. But you can see we're coming near the end of the course. We're about galloping for 8 minutes. His ears are still really pricked. He feels really fresh still, which is a really good feeling for your horse going around its first long format or 3-day, which is a little bit longer course. He's been used to around 6 minutes, and we went 8 minutes. And here I went really slow going down that road crossing. I didn't like the undulating ground and kind of the change in footing. And now coming to the last fence. I'm preparing for the last jump. And he does really good job finishing up nice and strong. And again, I was really pleased, just that one mistake, but overall he felt great. Then Sunday morning we have our veterinary inspection. We also have this done on the Wednesday to make sure horses are sound to compete. And then you also have your trot up after cross country to again make sure the horses are sound and fit for show jump. Sharpie felt very well. He was very fresh, and I was very pleased with how he seemed and nice and fit to continue on the show jump.
Decision accepted.
So here's Sharpie coming in for our show jump round, and we are on the grass for show jumping, and it seems like a fairly good course for him. So I'm going to come in, give my salute to the judges. You always want to wait to hear the buzzard, because then you have a 45-second window. And again, my goal is to let my horse kind of see around, get a little relaxed. I want to make sure I can have the go forward and come back button. But I really want to give him over his back. Because again, for Sharpie, show jumping can be the weaker phase. So we've been spending a lot of time working on this. And I'm actually pretty pleased with the shape he's feeling. And again, he felt really good, especially after cross country. Come into the first jump, and he gives me a good jump. And here I balance, and I see my distance to this vertical, and he just jumps it a little belly flat, and he takes it down. Mind you, we were jumping kind of straight into the vendor area, so he might have gotten a little distracted. And then he does a good jump over that oxer. And this outside line was actually becoming a bogey line for horses, but Sharpie jumped really well through it. Really have to make sure I stay very slow with my body with him. He's so sensitive. If you kind of overdo your body, he gets a little rattled. So balance is really the key with him, which he just makes me become a better rider by riding even more quiet and still. And it's too bad that we had that skinny fence down. You could barely see it roll off. He barely touched it, so that was a cheap rail. And then I'm trying to keep his shape for the triple, which is the last line. He really jumps up and out, which I was proud of. A little hesitation in the center, but overall, I was really pleased. We had 2 rails, but he finished up nice and strong for his first 3-day. Very pleased for his education.
We have 8 jumping and no time falls. Time taken here at 72. Time will stand at 72. So 8 falls counted. Elisa will finish now on 78.6.